Okay, it looks like the traffic is slowing down. Good morning. I'm Michelle Economo-Uresti, the Executive Director of the Workforce Intelligence Network. This is the Michigan Alliance for Greater Mobility Advancement MAGMA Advisory Council meeting, which is convened by WIN. MAGMA is comprised of automotive OEMs, manufacturing Tier 1 suppliers, and industry stakeholder groups. On behalf of the MAGMA Governing Board, I would like to thank and welcome our moderator and panel of speakers. Our speakers for the Education Roundtable discussion serve on the MAGMA Governing Board. They will provide information related to new certification training programs in the automotive and clean energy economy. Our esteemed moderator is Dr. Dennis Bona, who has more than 40 years in community college workforce education. Rooted in trade and technical instruction, Dennis moved through the ranks as a director of a manufacturing technology center, occupational dean, vice president for instruction, and completed this long journey by serving 10 years as a community college president. He's currently directing the workforce education arm of the Michigan Workforce Training and Education Collaborative, known as MUTEC, by facilitating partnerships with employers, government, and education to further our workforce of the future. Welcome, Dennis, and please introduce our first speaker.
Thank you, Michelle, and welcome to everybody on the call. And it's indeed my privilege to introduce our speakers today. And so our first one is Elizabeth Melville. She is the Director of Learning at SAE International and is responsible for leading SAE's professional development programs, as well as its certification strategy and efforts. Elizabeth works closely with SAE's Sustainable Mobility Solutions team and the projects that help build a green tech workforce. Elizabeth has spent over 2 decades building highly talented learning teams and developing training programs in all modalities. Most recently, Elizabeth led the development of a body of knowledge resulting in the launch of the SAE electric vehicle supply equipment. This is known as the EVSE. We all love acronyms, so you got to be careful with them. Technician Certification Program, which certifies the critical workforce needed to maintain and repair electric vehicle charging stations. Elizabeth is passionate about lifelong learning and sustainability. Elizabeth will go through her presentation. We may be able to deal with a question at the end of her presentation, but we're going to have a more open time for question and answers at the end of all 3 presentations. So Elizabeth, you're on.
Thanks, Dennis. I appreciate the introduction. And if you guys can just kind of let me know if you're seeing my slides there.
Yes.
Look good? All right, great. Thanks so much. So as Dennis indicated, I'm gonna share a little bit about the EVSE, Electric Vehicle Supply Equipment Technician Certification Program that we've recently launched at SAE International. So you don't need to hear about me again, but there's my lovely glamour shot there. But first, if you all don't mind, I just want to give a little shout out to SAE International. I've been here about 5.5 years, and like you know, I knew SAE as the developer of standards, consensus-driven standards. Over 35,000 in the technical space for automotive and aerospace. And what I didn't know, and many people don't really fully understand, is the full complement of professional activities that SAE has in addition to the standards that we offer. I like to say that SAE can support someone in their career from cradle to gray. And literally, we have programs that start in pre-K with our award-winning STEM programs, A World in Motion. that are available, usually free of charge in various school districts across the country, all the way through high school and into college with our Collegiate Design Series program, where students design, build, and compete in teams, and really exciting challenges in the mobility space. Everything from our green snowmobile challenges. We're launching an F1 challenge in Europe in the coming years. So lots of really exciting work for young and up and coming engineers to engage in. And so after that, of course, people and engineers can engage in a wide variety of other activities. What you may have come to some of our events, WCX held in downtown Detroit, which is a really exciting event, bringing lots of engineers together to hear about the research that people are doing. People publish research with SAE, of course. We have a full complement of papers available through our Mobilis platform. And addition of professional development classes, which of course are some of the things that I oversee. So we have over 350 different classes that we offer and in our catalog. So that's over usually about 500 classes we offer a year in addition to the e-learning courses that we have. So it's very active part of our portfolio of offerings at SAE. And then, of course, we welcome everybody to our open standards committees. Anybody can join. It's consensus-driven standards development. It's something that our members and our participants are really very engaged and passionate about, the ability to contribute to those standards that industry adopts. So that's pretty exciting. And then, our board membership is also an option for folks. So Carla Balo is our board chair right now, and it's a really wonderful group of people who are working together to help forge the future of SAE. So we really do a lot in this space, of course, and just wanted to kind of ground the work that we're doing in the green energy space, in the charging infrastructure space with what SAE does in general. We're a nonprofit and we are a mission-driven organization here to really serve industry and serve the future of mobility. So, so what are we talking about today? Let's talk about the topic at hand. As advertised, I am going to share information about the EVSE certification program, but that really starts with looking at why this workforce is so critical today and in the future. And it's critical to the adoption of electric vehicles and achieving our ambitious climate goals in the near future. So what are the challenges to EV adoption? First, we know that we saw very ambitious goals set for EV adoption related to our climate goals and zero emissions. And of course, this year has been a watershed year in terms of sales, but also in terms of what we see as somewhat slowing growth in the EV sales. They're still going to continue, but those projections are really being scaled back just a little bit. In the next 4 years, the EV car sales are growing at an average of 21% in an economic transition scenario, compared with an average of 61% between 2020 and 23. So the EV share of globally is really growing. This is according to the Bloomberg NEF. So it's slowing a little bit, but it's really going to continue to grow in the next 10, 20 years. So for every EV that's on the road today, and we're really just going to focus on the US market right now, options for public charging, have to exist to support recharging. I frequently I'm not an EV owner, but I always rent an EV when I come to Pittsburgh. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and I can tell you range anxiety is definitely real. I can pretty much hypermile it all the way from Columbus to Pittsburgh, by carefully managing my speed, etc. But batteries are becoming more efficient. There's really range anxiety is going to drop a little bit, but there's still charge anxiety, right? So if I need to stop and charge, where am I going to charge? Will there be charging facilities that are appropriate for my vehicle? Today, there are approximately 130,000 public level 2 EV chargers across the US, according to the Department of Energy. And, there's been tremendous investments in this infrastructure in the past 2 or 3 years, and those will continue to grow, of course, to build out that ecosystem. There should be approximately 500,000 by 2030, according to the Biden administration. That's the goal, is to really increase that by, 3.5 fold in just the next few years. So that's a lot of new charging stations that are going to be going in across the country. You'll know they're popping up everywhere, right? They're at hotels if you need to stay the night somewhere. It's great to have a charger right there at your hotel. They're popping up at retailers if you go to Kroger or to Walmart. You see an investment in this charging infrastructure popping up there because retailers want you to shop there. They want you to be able to charge while you're shopping. So where those places are, right? If you're an EV driver, you know where you can stop and charge. But the really big challenge for us today is it's great that these are popping up and they're going in, but reliability still remains a really big challenge for this infrastructure. Today, the reliability rate on public infrastructure is about 78%. So on any given day, that means 1 in 5 units that you're going to encounter is inoperable. And I can tell you from personal experience, that's super frustrating to just not be able to show up at a charger and it not really be working. So imagine any given day, there's about 28,000 stations across the country that are not operating. So when that charger goes down, depending on who the owner is and their commitment or ability to maintain that station, it could be down for days. So that really brings us to this new workforce that really needs to be stood up to improve the reliability, to be able to go out and attend to those out of order charging stations. So this is the electric vehicle supply equipment technician role. We expect this role to grow to about 10,000 people by 2030. So, those numbers are a little bit fluid depending upon, a lot of things, but it's a huge growth in a brand new workforce that hasn't existed before, right? So what does the EVSE technician do? They're responsible for repairing, maintaining, and troubleshooting the hardware, the software, and the firmware of that charging station. And that includes a wide range of responsibilities that you see here. Calibration of the system, commissioning is one thing that they are responsible for doing, communications and cell signal testing, corrective and preventative maintenance, diagnostics, parts replacement, reprogramming, troubleshooting, and performing upgrades. So these technicians are employed by a wide variety of companies. Of course, this is a new opportunity for startups like Charger Help to stand up this workforce and deploy them to work for large OEMs in a contract basis. But there's also many OEMs, fueling stations, and retailers who are also hiring this workforce. So as that infrastructure grows, that workforce really needs to be stood up to maintain and repair those stations to increase that reliability. 78%, I think most people would agree, is really unacceptable. Imagine if 78% of the gas stations, for those of you driving icy, when you show up at a station, it's not working, you're driving around trying to find another station. It's just way too low to support the adoption of EVs. The driving public must feel that that infrastructure is solid, that it's reliable. When they go out to charge or drive an extended period and they're not on a full charge, that they're going to be able to stop somewhere and find a level 2 charger that's open and available and working. So the EVSE technician is, really critical in making sure that that gets done. In terms of the folks who are doing this role, you really, you don't need a college degree to do this role. You do need to have technical aptitude. You've got to be able to handle basic mechanical skills in order to do the role. From a competency perspective, you've got to have good critical thinking skills. You got to be able to, follow procedures. You've got to have good communication. You have to be able to understand safety protocols and to follow them closely. But most of the training, is occurring at either a private or a public training provider. And so people come in and they get trained and they come from all different backgrounds, right? Some folks are, have college degrees in, a wide variety of different backgrounds. Some people are coming in. There's, I think the recent graduate in one of the Charger Help programs was a former music journalist, and they really wanted an opportunity to come in and do something really different. And so they went through the program, they graduated. So it's really a tremendous opportunity to expand opportunities also into underserved communities that have not really had access to these well-paying green energy jobs. This is a fantastic entry point to that, and it's an entry point that can lead to a really robust training pathway. Come in here, you get your certification. You could find yourself then find yourself into an electrician position, right? Where you go and get trained through any one of those training programs. That's a doorway that can open for you, of course, through proper training and licensing. So how did this certification come about? The way that it came about was really similar to how SAE engages in the mobility industry with a lot of different programs. In this case, was an employer came to SAE and started a conversation that was really about, hey, we've got this workforce. We really want to find a way to create a professional certification that helps, industry across the board. And so SAE went out and worked and pulled together a variety of different employers in this area. You can see a selection of them here. All of these companies had people who worked with us on the certification program. And, that's really how it came about. The companies you see here all participated in that development of the body of knowledge and are engaged in continuing discussions around the certification. So what is the role of the professional certification? The role of professional certification for the workforce includes a number of things. The alignment that they have to specific measurable criteria that defines the mastery needed for a role. Of course, that's kind of the underlying value of the professional certification. An element of validation by employers and experts within the field. As I just mentioned, we had to go to industry and say, what skills and knowledge are needed for this role? So there's that validation so that when folks go out and they get that credential, they know that these are desired skills that are required for the role and that employers are looking for. the standardization of the measurement of that knowledge and skill through an assessment, and of course the awarding of a credential. These are all the basics of a professional certification that apply to the EVSE technician role. And what is the value for both employers and for the workforce? For employers, it creates a consistent playing field for hiring, and it creates a baseline level so that knowledge regarding the technology is understood. It creates clarity across industry for those skills that make hiring easier. If someone has this credential, that they have mastered the knowledge and the skills that are in the body of knowledge. And you know that those are valuable because industry came together and actually wrote them. For the workforce, the benefits are similar. It's a consistent set of expectations with regards to knowledge and skills. So when someone is going out and trying to find a training program, they know the knowledge and skills that they need to have would be embedded in that, so long as it's aligned to the body of knowledge. They know that there's a credential that they can earn that demonstrates to any future employers that they hold those skills. And it harmonizes those expectations across industry, of course. So a little bit about the certification, the EVSE certification. The structure is standard, as I mentioned. We worked with the employers to establish a body of knowledge, and that body of knowledge outlines the skills and knowledge that are required for the role. So this process was discussed at length through a variety of meetings that occurred over the course of about a year. So the process discussed at length the scope of the role, which is differentiated from that of a licensed electrician. And we know that the role of the licensed electrician, in particular in installation, is essential. But the employers were pretty clear that this is not a role that is required to have a licensed electrician to fulfill, but it encompasses extensive knowledge, of course, of safety practices, as well as prerequisite training. We developed an examination that's based on that body of knowledge that's required to receive the certification, so that questions on the examination are aligned to the body of knowledge, which I'll talk about here in just a moment. And that examination is delivered with our affiliate, Probitas Authentication, and Probitas maintains that registry of certified individuals who've achieved their certification. And then, of course, the commitment that SAE has to maintaining that body of knowledge to make sure that it is up to date, that we're revisiting it on a ad hoc basis, at least twice a year, to make sure that it's updated with the knowledge and skills. As we know, the technology in this space changes fast, right? So we've already updated the body of knowledge once, and to make sure that it is up to date with the skills that employers need and the workforce needs to keep them current and up to date with any new safety protocols that may come down the line. So the body of knowledge is comprised of 7 domains. You can see them here, that technicians must master in order to ensure the safe and effective performance of the role. What is needed are, of course, a deep and good understanding of the regulations and standards that include knowledge of electrical codes and safety training. That includes OSHA training. They must have the OSHA training in order to be certified. They must go through NFPA, National Fire Protection Association 70E training, and other aspects of safety training. They have to have a really good understanding of electrical energy fundamentals, of electric vehicles and batteries, Supply equipment commissioning, of course. That's a core responsibility of the technicians. Preventative maintenance and troubleshooting, which is also a core responsibility. So they must understand what's involved in that. And of course, the supply equipment itself. So, so these are the 7 domains. This is the body of knowledge is really valuable because it provides guidance for those training providers who are standing up training. I know we've had several hundred downloads of the body of knowledge, so it's something that is really useful for organizations who want to help train this workforce. And it's great for prep for the EVSE certification examination so that folks know all of these domains are going to be covered. We have 2 levels of certification that are currently available for the EVSE, and both pertain to the maintenance and repair of the levels 1 through levels 3 of charging. So that includes the DC fast chargers. The generalist level, that's the first level, that is that level demonstrates that they have mastered the knowledge portion of the body of knowledge. The body of knowledge, there's really 2 levels of information that are described therein: the knowledge base and the skill base. And so when we devised the certification levels, we wanted to be able to reflect that there's that knowledge level, which is a written test, and that can give you the EVSE generalist certification. But then there's the second level, which is the specialist level. That specialist level designation demonstrates that the EVSE has the skill that they need to perform in the work. They can identify, how to conduct all of those things and actually be able to show them in an observable skill. And we are currently developing out the EVSE specialist exam right now, and that will actually be able to be deployed on a desktop, and it's going to be demonstrated through a simulation-based exam. This was another point that we wanted to really work through with the advisory panel to make sure that simulation-based exams would be a good way to not only demonstrate the skill, but also be able to scale the exam, right? Because the actual in-person observable skill exams are going to be really limited in their scale. And we wanted to be sure that we could scale this right away. And as I note here, EVSE technicians aren't qualified for the installation process. So local regulations are going to stipulate who's qualified to conduct that work. And typically that's the licensed electrician. And the EVITP program is the training and certification provider for those installers. So that does not cover this. If you have this certification, you are not qualified to be an installer. Typically, you have to be a licensed electrician for that. So the pathway to certification starts with completing a training program. And I've put just a short list of training providers that we have here. This is, they're currently providing training in this area, but this list is growing pretty quickly. We're currently not conducting reviews of the training providers for like an approved list, but we are looking at that for the future. We really want to make sure that there's no barriers to, not that that would be a barrier, but we want to encourage people to be offering training in this area. It's a workforce that's really needed, and we want that to get up and running as quickly as possible. So if we get to the point where there's just hundreds of training providers, we may look at an approved list at some point, but that requires a lot of effort to to go out and ensure the rigor of the program to be able to evaluate that. So that's something we'll consider in the future, but it's not happening today. So after the training is completed, there's the first exam, and that exam must be, you must pass that written portion of the exam. We have a training partner in Pearson VUE, and I'll share information about that in a moment. And once that's passed, you receive the generalist certification. After that happens, that really prepares you or prepares someone to really go into the workforce, right? They've developed and been trained to that base level of knowledge, and they're ready to be employed. They've got that initial certification. The exam that happens in really part two is will help them get that specialist certification. And once someone attains employment, they're also going to get OEM certifications and further training from their employer so that they are well versed in, all of the various OEM's equipment. So next steps that we recommend for folks, if you're a training provider, I'd say go to the SAE.org page. Just do a search on EVSE technician certification, and the page will come up. I can also send it to you. Be glad to send that out to everybody. You can download that body of knowledge and build out your curriculum accordingly. You can also contact me directly to be included on that training provider list. As I said, we're not really gating that right now. We really want to just encourage as many training providers to come on board as possible. And then if you're a candidate for the exam, you can register for the exam at Pearson VUE. Pearson has brick and mortar testing centers all over the country, which is why we selected them. We wanted this to really not have barriers to, to access to that. We also have online proctoring available, which is available through OnView, and that could be deployed, for example, at a community college to do the testing there. And that's it about our program.
Well, Elizabeth, thank you for that presentation. And I've reread my instructions a little bit closer. We actually can do questions now. The idea is to allow 5 minutes right now for questions and answers, because then people won't have to remember that question through the next couple of presentations that they have. I'm going to start out, though, because there's a couple of questions. Perhaps this is low-hanging fruit for you, but one, how long is the certification valid? And I'm looking at the generalist right now because the specialist isn't complete yet. But if I get that certification, is it good for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, renewable? How does that work?
That's a 3-year certification. And the reason we wanted to have a require renewal is just because the technology is changing so fast, right? So we want to ensure that certification is really meaningful to the workforce. So every 3 years.
Well, that makes total sense given how new everything is and how fast it's evolving. Maybe related to that, you've listed maybe a dozen or so different trainings that are, or trainings that are available for people. How long does it typically take someone to go through the training as you've seen it defined to this point to be prepared to do the general certification?
Yeah, so those training programs really do vary. I would say on average, they're between about 40 hours. Some are hybrid, so they're, some of it is online, asynchronous, and then there's cohorts that come together. So about 40 hours seems to be kind of average.
Okay.
So
and
not
then just
bad.
No, not really.
Yeah.
And so just for clarification then, and you mentioned it at least a couple different times, um, you don't need to be a certified electrician or a licensed electrician to take the certification. However, if your intention is to get into the business of installation, it's quite likely that you're going to need to be a licensed electrician.
That's correct, Dennis. And we really wanted to be absolutely clear about the scope of the work with the advisory panel, because it has come up multiple times, because there's really strong program and installation, and that is just a very different scope of work. So that's correct. You don't need to be a licensed electrician to be a technician.
Okay. We have a question in the chat. The question is, are employers reaching out to SAE directly to secure successful EFSE graduates?
Yes, are they reaching out to us?
Yes.
No, we haven't. I don't know that we've gotten specific requests to us
Okay. Now, are
to
you
acquire
keeping a
them.
list of who has the certification? So if an employer were to contact you, you could give them names?
Yes, there is a registry. Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, folks, your opportunity. Are there any other questions out there regarding this certification program? If something does occur to you, then thank you very much. It does occur to you, throw the question into the chat and we can bring it up later on at the end of all three presentations. So Elizabeth, thank you so much. That was very informative, and we'll move on now to our next presenter.
Thanks.
Our next presenter is Jeremy Worm. He is a research assistant professor in the Department of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering at Michigan Tech University. And having been up there myself to visit with Jeremy, you've got about 1 month to do that, and then it's just too cold. You can't get up there. His work focuses on advancing automotive and powertrain technologies through innovative research and hands-on education. Research interests include high-performance engine, spark ignition and compression ignition, direct injection systems, and compressed natural gas technologies, alternative fuels, and energy efficiency. Areas of expertise include internal combustion engines, combustion system development, variable valve lift and timing, powertrain calibration, alternative fuels integration, hybrid electric vehicles, instrumentation and testing, ground vehicle systems and powertrain systems. Jeremy's expertise and leadership in these areas contribute significantly to advancing sustainable and efficient powertrain solutions, as well as fostering collaboration between academia and industry. Jeremy, you're on.
All right, thank you, Dennis. Let me go ahead and share my screen here, and we'll get started. And can I just get a confirmation that you can see a title slide of a PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Just want to make sure I'm sharing the right screen here. Yeah, so thank you for that introduction, Dennis, and thank you everyone for your time this morning. Very happy to be here. I just wanted to start talking about some of the ways we do professional development, and specifically in the mobility space. And excuse me, one of the ways we do that is through our mobile laboratory and our suite of hands-on courses that we offer. I'll kind of start off this morning kind of talking, I guess, from a 50,000 foot level, kind of how this all fits in, and then slowly sort of just dive down into a little bit more of the details on how we do this, to kind of, like, I'll say, level set everybody in what we do and how we do it, and then I'll wrap up with some recent updates to our training program, and some of the things that we've been doing recently, and will be doing in the next few months to come as kind of updates. So we'll go ahead and get started. So as I mentioned, our solution to professional development training is through hands-on training that we do through our mobile laboratory. And just in terms of how that fits into the overall organization, that training that we offer through our mobile laboratory is part of our Advanced Power Systems Research Center, or APS Labs. So really, the research centers at the university report up through the research side of the university. So we report to the vice president of research. We do a lot of different things in the mobility space, and I'm not going to go through those things today. You can see some of the areas that we're involved in: propulsion systems, connected and autonomous vehicles, alternative energy, etc. But the thing that we'll be talking about today, and I'll try and turn on my pointer here, but the thing that we'll be talking about today is specifically the education and training services that we offer. Our core team, as we offer education and training, our core team is myself, Grant Ovest, and Vinicius Van Hayes. And then what we do is we leverage the rest of the staff here as needed. We have about 27 engineers on staff within our research center, all with widely varying backgrounds. Most of those engineers have come out of industry, and most of those have been either at OEMs or suppliers. And so we'll leverage the remainder of the team here as needed to co-teach various course subjects with us. And then also we've got access to the entire university. So if there's some specific content that we need, if a customer wants a section on some very specific content, we've got hundreds of faculty across the university that we can tee up to cover those specifics. All of the training we do is hands-on in nature, and we'll talk more about some of those details in the next few minutes here as we get into this morning. But all the training we do is hands-on in nature, and we'll also get into some of the different topics that we cover. But we'll be talking a lot today about the things that we do in the electrification space, EVs, hybrid vehicles, charging infrastructure, high voltage safety, those types of things. Our typical course delivery is 20 hours in duration. So that's about 2.5 days. We can either do that in 2.5 days continuously, or we can spread that out. Just depends on what's better for the particular customer. Our location is also up to the customer. I'd say 90% of the time, it's most convenient to them to have us come to their location. And so we'll typically go to their engineering facilities or wherever they would prefer to have us. And I would say about 40 to 50% of the time that we spend in class is hands-on. We'll have the learners doing experiments in our lab, driving cars, collecting data, taking things apart, putting things together, et cetera, to really kind of reinforce those concepts. As I mentioned, kind of the centerpiece and how we do that is through our mobile lab. The mobile lab consists of a expandable semi-trailer, 53-foot semi-trailer. You can see an interior picture of it here. So it expands into some classroom and laboratory space. And then we've also got propulsion system test cells at the front and rear of that lab. So we can do testing in EV motors. We can test EV battery packs and other forms of the propulsion system in the lab environment. And then in the main space here, we might be doing benchtop experiments, tear downs, things like that. We've also got a fleet of vehicles. We've got a little over 30 vehicles in the fleet right now. I want to say it's around 33 or so vehicles in the fleet right now. And then we bring those vehicles with us with a second semi-truck that hauls cars. And so depending on the nature of the course, we'll bring vehicles along with us that most closely represent the technological topics we're covering in that course. I won't go into a ton of detail here on this slide, but I just wanted to kind of point out that the way these courses are generally structured, at least at the systems level, is that we'll be covering kind of the vehicle development process. In the beginning, we'll start out with the basic physics, get those fundamentals understood. Then we might start to move into subsystems, maybe doing some benchtop experiments, tear downs, those kinds of things. We're then going to move into the test cells, doing experiments there, collecting data. And then ultimately, by the time we're done with the course, the participants and learners are out in vehicles, driving vehicles around, collecting data, and then bringing that data back to the lab to analyze and kind of tie all those concepts together. There's really four things that we do, or four types of programming that we do with the mobile lab. The first three I'm going to just graze over very, very quickly. just for context, and then we'll spend the majority of the time today talking about what we do in the professional development and training space. So the first one that I wanted to mention is our activities in STEM outreach. And so the mobile lab really just provides a very well-suited venue, if you will, for pre-college STEM outreach. We've done many programs over the years all over the country. One of I'll say our flagship programs is Women in Automotive Engineering. We do that every summer, and we work with an automotive supplier to headline sponsor that event. And it's just a great event for getting high school juniors and senior women a little bit more knowledge about what it is to be an automotive engineer and what that space looks like. So that's just one example of the types of outreach we do there. We also get involved in what I'll call major initiative outreach. And this is really just going somewhere. Like I said, we've been a lot of different places in the country, but really kind of spreading the word and raising awareness of maybe emerging technologies or those types of things. And you can see some examples there of some different places we've been in the country. The last one I'll mention briefly here is field research. The reality is that we've got a fleet of 30-something vehicles, couple of Class 8 semi-trucks, and we found that to be a very valuable venue for doing various mobility-based field research, either in the light duty space or the heavy duty space, and even some of it is on the fringe of what we'd call road vehicles, and this project here was looking at rail crossing, so it was really in the rail industry, but using our fleet of vehicles, their connected capabilities to minimize vehicle to train collisions. The big one though that I wanted to talk about today and really focus exclusively on today is our activities in professional development training. And you can see some of the courses that we've offered there, and some of our learners that we've worked with. And really over the years, we've been doing this training through our mobile lab since 2012. And then we were doing a mobile version of that training even while we were building the mobile lab for a few years prior to 2012. And over the period of time, you can see that we've worked with a lot of different customers and learners, from automotive OEMs through tier ones to government, in really just a wide range of opportunities, mostly around the state of Michigan, but not exclusively. We've really been all over the country in the past 10 or so years. I did mention this a couple of times, but we have a lot of flexibility in the location. We are set up so that we can travel to a customer's location, and that really is beneficial to them, so that their employees don't need to travel to the training. They can still attend to emergencies if they arise in the office, in the lab that they're working in, or at the very least, they don't need to be consumed with travel. And sometimes it's at the customer's physical location, their offices, and sometimes it's at other areas around the country. Maybe there's an event or something like that will set up at a big conference or show or some other type of an event. So there's a lot of flexibility there in where we can set up and deliver this training. The other thing that we like to do is work with our clients on customizing the content. The way this process kind of works is we'll sit down in what I'll call a discovery phase, work with those clients and really figure out what their needs are, what the demographic looks like within their organization, what their base level of knowledge is, where they need to get to with their new knowledge, and then we construct the curriculum for that particular course to best meet that customer's needs. And sometimes it's even just having their product part of that course. So maybe a particular OEM wants their specific product line part of that. Well, we can get that through these discovery discussions and understand maybe what product line is most important to them, and then we can pull that content into the courses. We've taught courses to engineers, technicians, sales team, executives, and that's also part of that discovery phase, is understanding that audience and their background and what they're hoping to get out of it. So we work with that customer closely on that. Here's a few of the different subjects that we cover. We have over 30 course titles available, and those course titles kind of condense within these topical areas. So the vehicular systems is very popular these days. We're doing a lot of training in electrification. Um, I would say without a doubt, most of the training we've been doing recently within the last several years is in the field of electrification, sometimes at a systems level, and then sometimes more at a deep dive level where we'll deep dive batteries, we'll deep dive electric motors and power electronics, et cetera. So in that case, a lot of times those will pair up where we'll first do a systems level class, and then a subset of that group of learners then goes into what I'd call the more advanced subjects, where then we'll spend 2.5 days just getting into the weeds of electric motors or motor drives or batteries, for example. But you can see some of the other course titles that we do offer. This instrumentation and testing is an interesting one. That's typically not a course that's taught in college. So we find that a lot of companies want their engineers, especially their new engineers, to go through a course like that. And then this slide, and I'm going to go through these line by line, and it's a bit of an eye chart, but this slide here goes into some of the detailed courses here within each of those topical areas I showed on the previous slide. This slide shows some of the more detailed courses that we cover within those areas. And again, within these titles, then there's additional flexibility once we start to talk with the customer and start to figure out exactly the background of those learners and where they're hoping to get when they get out of that course. Then we'll further customize those specific titles for that customer. So that's an overview, and it's a bit of a long overview, but I wanted to kind of set the stage and level set everybody on what we do and how we do it. Now I just wanted to spend the last couple of minutes here talking about some recent developments that we've done. For those of you that we've talked to in the past, this might be of interest. And so one of the things is just updating our courses. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, we really started doing this in 2012 when we launched our mobile lab. But some of these courses really have their roots going back as far as about 2009, when we were starting to do some hands-on stuff and some course stuff. Now each year, and I won't even say each year, it's really each delivery of that course to each new customer will do what I kind of jokingly call model year updates. But basically little tweaks to the course. We'll call it continuous improvement, just changing a slide here or there, an experiment here or there. But we've also been, over the past year or two, we've been doing what I'll call more significant upgrades in a lot of our courses, like really pretty significant facelifts or overhauls on these. One of the things that we have to do is regularly keep our fleet of vehicles current. And so we're just been adding some new vehicles to the fleet, representing different types of electrification technologies, full battery electric vehicles, hybrids, et cetera, but just making sure that we've always got some of the most current vehicles in our fleet, so we can bring those to the courses and to the customer. We've also upgraded the technology in our test cells to reflect the most modern propulsion motor technologies. So when we look at the way to control those motors and performance tests and everything, we've got the most up-to-date technology. We've been updating a lot of our teaching aids and a lot of things we do teardowns on. Again, just making sure that if we're doing a teardown on let's say a hybrid drive unit, it's a current production hybrid drive unit. So you can see, for example, we just purchased I think we got it on eBay or something from a wrecked vehicle, but we just purchased a Tesla drive unit from a brand new vehicle, so that when we're doing these teardowns, we're using relevant equipment. And the other thing we've been doing recently is purchasing commercial off-the-shelf trainers, and that's something that wasn't really available to us when we started doing electrification training 10, 12, 13, 14 years ago. We had to develop all of our trainers ourselves, literally taking vehicle parts and engineering them and putting them together as trainers. That space has changed a lot in the last decade, and we're working with commercial entities that build and sell really impressive trainers. And so we're adding these trainers into our curriculum. Now, this just being one example of those, but we're adding several trainers into the curriculum now. We've also been creating new courses. And so in addition to these facelifts on our existing courses, we've been creating entirely new courses. One is that we've really split our electrification set of courses into 3 versions, depending on if the audience is engineers, technicians, executives, or sales folks, for example. We've also been working on developing new courses for first responders. So we've done this several times now where we've delivered high voltage and EV type courses for first responders. We had previously a systems engineering course, but we've done some very, very significant updates to that with a very automotive centric focus. And we're working on developing some new curriculum in ADAS and autonomous systems. And the last thing I'll talk about this morning is kind of where we've been relative to new partnerships and new opportunities. And the one thing that we've been working with is the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, specifically through their talent action team, which offers us the opportunity to offer a 50-50 cost split on our courses to members participating in MEDC's TAT. And you can see, I know many of these, there's a lot of overlap between MAGMA membership and many of these members here. And so we're able to offer a 50-50 cost split to any of these companies on the list here for the courses that we teach, which has been really a great opportunity for all of us. And then lastly is just some internal partnerships within Michigan Tech. Within the last few years, Michigan Tech has created an entire department called Global Campus. And we've been working very closely with Global Campus to increase the awareness and specifically access to our professional development courses. And one of the things Global Campus has been able to help us with is streamlining the payment process. Previously, it was run through the university like a sponsored research project, and that added undue red tape and bureaucracy to that. So we've now significantly streamlined the payment process. And then working with Global Campus, we've also been able to add various online options, which are literally, clickable through an online, storefront, if you will, and adding asynchronous options as well. So with that, I'll conclude. Thank you again, everybody, for your time today.
Well, thank you, Jeremy. And don't leave just yet. We've got a couple questions coming your way. We got one in the chat right now. It says, Jeremy, what is the average cost of delivering the 20-hour training, say in Detroit, Michigan? How much do you charge, or what are the course fees? Then there's a follow-up question after that, but go ahead and answer that one first, I guess.
Sounds good. Well, we'll hit the hardball questions right away then. So no softball questions there. Yeah, no, that's a great question. That's a really good question. And I'm there's no single dollar value that I can quote here, but what I will do is provide some ranges. I would say the cost of the training is really going to be between, somewhere between 20,000 and maybe 40 or even 45,000 per course. And you might say, well, why is there such a huge range there? It really gets into some variables such as the course title. Some of the course titles are taught with the same team, kind of the core mobile lab team. Other course titles require us to bring down additional staff, faculty, a larger team. And so the size of the team that comes down drives some costs there. How many vehicles, what vehicles we're bringing down drives cost. How many days we're on site. Are we on site for 5 days, or is it 2.5 days all at once? We are all able to offer some, I'll call it economies of scale. So if we're doing one course versus that same course as a packet of 2 or 3 or 4 courses, those costs go down because we can leverage travel costs and setup costs and things like that. So there really is a pretty significant range there. But in the Southeast Michigan, we're looking at probably between 20 and 40K with those variables impacting the specific cost. And it wouldn't take us long to estimate a cost, but I would just need to talk to a particular customer for, even just a quick 10-minute phone call to better understand their needs and their location and the duration and the size of the participants, how many participants, and those kinds of things.
Thank you. And before I given the follow-up question, I'm going to integrate a couple of my own questions in there because it makes sense. How many students can you accommodate at one time when you do a training in the mobile trainer?
Yeah, that's another good question. We like 16. And the reason for that is we can break that into 4 groups of 4. Each of those learners are just absolutely immersed when we do the experiments. They're in those vehicles, driving around, collecting data, doing teardowns, those kinds of things. So we find 4 groups of 4, or 16 total participants, works really well. We can do overload. Sometimes a customer wants 20 people in the classroom, for example, and so we can do 20. Much more than 20 gets a little bit crowded. But what we have done in the past is we've worked with the customer to do options where maybe we've got a very large group, 50 or even 100 people, and we do some of the lecture-based training in maybe one of their large classrooms or auditoriums, and then we have those come out as groups to the mobile lab, and maybe group sizes of 16 or 20 for the lab activities. So there's some options there. Our preference is somewhere around 16, but we can take overload beyond that.
Okay. And thinking that most of these students are actually incumbent workers, because most of your contracts are with employers, I'm thinking, not other colleges. And so then are those students getting college credit while they're taking the courses?
Yeah. So normally when we do a professional development training, those incumbent workers are not interested in credit. They want the knowledge, but they already have their degree, for example, and in many cases they're not looking for another degree. Sometimes, however, though, we get into a couple of situations where one of these incumbent workers is actually pursuing an advanced degree. Maybe they're working on, let's say, a master's degree, um, or they're maybe thinking about an advanced degree, like maybe contemplating a master's degree. And so in those situations, we can leverage the I'll say the construct of the university, and we can get credit for those courses. We can get we can get 1 credit for 20 contact hours, and that's the duration of our courses. So we are able to get with some additional enrollment, we are able to get some college credit for those learners. So it would be maybe a credit towards a master's degree, or some type of an advanced degree, or even a bachelor's degree for taking those courses. And so as long as we know that in advance, we can work with those learners to make sure they're enrolled such that they'll be able to get credit when that's done.
Okay, and then do you take advantage at all of online training, like perhaps before you get there with the truck? So they do some things in advance of you arriving, and then you do the hands-on there. How does that work?
Yeah, we can do that. In times where we've had very large groups, we have done that, where we've done some advanced training online ahead of time, and then used the mobile lab primarily for the hands-on experiments. And then also we've had times in particular, during like the COVID pandemic, where face-to-face learning was restricted. There was a time during the pandemic where we were 100% online. So we can do that too. If a customer had a particular interest in doing online training, we can do that. We find now with the pandemic, residing or subsiding, there's a strong interest in the face-to-face, but online training is certainly a possibility.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jeremy. We're getting crunched on time, so I'm going to cut the questions off at that point, but please feel free to add more questions into the chat. And right now I'm going to go ahead and introduce Ashlee. So Ashlee Breitner is the Managing Director of Economic Growth of the Economic Growth Institute and newly appointed Workforce Director for the Electric Vehicle Center at the University of Michigan. Ashlee works to ensure the university continues to be a trusted partner for communities and companies to address their ever-changing needs. Ashlee teaches undergraduate and graduate level innovation courses in the University of Michigan College of Engineering Center for Entrepreneurship, and is an allowance certified decision coach. I'll let her describe more what that is. Prior to working at EGI, Ashlee managed the global business operations for a variety of product and system certification programs in the public health and safety sector. She worked with thousands of customers across the globe to diversify their businesses. Ashlee holds a BS in education from Eastern Michigan University and an MBA from White State University. Welcome, Ashlee. Good to see you again.
Good to see you also, Dennis. Thanks for that introduction, and a huge thank you to the MAGMA team and WIN team for inviting me here to speak today. So hopefully you can see my slides. If somebody can just give me a confirmation there.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Wonderful. Well, I am thrilled to be here today to tell you about some of the great work that's going on here at the University of Michigan in the EV workforce development and education space. I'm going to give you the 20,000-foot view of a lot of things that are going on here at the university, with the caveat that I'm sure I missed about 1,000,001 other opportunities. So I'm going to cover a lot today in the short amount of time that we have. At a high level, but want to start off by giving you all some background and background understanding of the Economic Growth Institute and the Electric Vehicle Centers, two different units here at the University of Michigan, to give you that background knowledge. And then I'm going to dig pretty deep into helping you to understand a little bit more about the Electric Vehicle Center, because it is a fairly new center here at the university. And digging in and giving you some real world examples of what we're working on in education and workforce development activities. And then I'll close with a little bit about how you can engage with us and just continue to learn more about the great work that's going on here. So as Dennis mentioned, I've served here at the Economic Growth Institute as managing director with the unit for about the last 7 years. And so for those that don't know anything about EGI, hopefully you have heard of us before. You'll hear us refer to ourselves as EGI. We're known as that in the ecosystem often. But we are not a new unit here at the university. Been in existence for over 40 years. And we're very much an outward-facing unit that really works to leverage the resources here of the university, our ecosystem, our partners, our wonderful faculty and staff, technology experts, you name it, in order to support our vision of equitable economic growth. And so our team takes a very much boots on the ground approach to supporting companies and communities throughout the state and even beyond our state's borders. And also foundational to both companies and communities is the workforce and the people that keep them all moving every day. So our team at EGI is out there on the road on a regular basis. Many of our staff members are working today as we speak with companies and communities to make sure we have a strong, resilient economy. The majority of our staff don't necessarily have academic backgrounds. Many of them come from really deep backgrounds in industry and community economic development, where they really understand the challenges that our companies and our communities face. And with that practical kind of applied boots on the ground approach that we take, just about 1.5 years ago, we were also asked to help lead the Electric Vehicle Center's workforce development pillar. The EV Center was just stood up here within the last 1.5 years from funding that we received from the state of Michigan's Labor and Economic Opportunity. And our mission at the Electric Vehicle Center, for those of you if you've not heard about it yet, is to educate, innovate, and engage to accelerate the future of electric mobility. The center itself, our foundation to the work we are doing is driven by industry. As in MAGMA's mission also here, we want to make sure that what we are delivering, the solutions, whether it's technology solutions, workforce development, or education, that they are driven by industry's needs. So MAGMA is a great platform for us to help understand your needs in these regular convenings. In the center, just for a little additional background before I get into some examples of our work, there are 4 strategic pillars: education, technology, workforce development, and facilities. So I'm going to quickly cover facilities and technology, because I do think it will be of interest to some of the individuals on the call today. And then I'm going to dig deeper into workforce development and education. So the center actually came about, if you're not familiar, Quite a few years ago now, the university established what we call the Battery Lab, which is an actual battery pilot line for manufacturing batteries. And this was established through a partnership with Ford Motor Company and other industry partners. And that battery lab has been really, really effective in doing what it's designed to do. Over 90% of the capacity of that pilot line is actually used by industry. So not necessarily by students, faculty, or staff, but by industry to come in, bring in their different capabilities in testing opportunities for batteries within an R&D perspective. And that battery lab actually books on a quarterly basis. We open the booking for industry and partners to book the lab on a quarterly basis, and typically within 6 hours, that lab is booked for the quarter. And so there's a tremendous opportunity there, obviously a strong need for additional capacity. And when we went to the state to talk about that need for additional capacity with the lab is when we ended up coming back with the investment to establish the electric vehicle center. So within our facilities pillar of the EV center, we will be expanding that battery pilot line. We have Battery Lab 2.0, as we call it, which will make our capacity and capabilities bigger, faster, better. So bigger packs, cell production, some welding capabilities there. That is going to be online here very soon. Could be today for all I know. I know they're very close to the finish line in Battery Lab 2.0. Battery Lab 3.0 is going to give us more capacity, even beyond supporting industry, but also to expand our education and training capabilities. And that'll be coming here in the next couple of years as we're renovating a couple spaces within the university system here in Ann Arbor. So super excited for our facilities expansion capabilities. Next, I'm going to jump into the technology pillar. So over the last year and a half, we've been digging deep with our employer partners, our electric vehicle center members who are composed of industry to really understand where are their needs from a technology development perspective. And we've kind of ranked those needs that we heard across the sector into these top 8 priority needs. So what we are doing actively right now within the EV Center is helping to foster connections between our industry partners who have a need for technology development and our great faculty experts that have that subject matter expertise, lab and testing capabilities in order to further advance those technologies. So over the last actual few weeks here, we've been running a series of workshops to help our employer partners contribute ideas, our faculty members to contribute ideas around those particular technology focus areas. So we had our first workshop a couple of weeks back. The particular focus of that workshop was on the topic areas of batteries and drives. And we had 124 ideas submitted for technology development opportunities. And so what we are doing now through that process that I just shared with you on the screen is working kind of through we'll call it the whittling down process. So we're working to make sure that there's a strong need across industry for advancing those particular project ideas, and that we're bringing multiple industry partners and faculty members together to advance those particular projects. We have our next workshop next week, which is going to be focused on end of life and the thermal management cycle. And our goal is by the end of this year is to have very specific selected scoped projects to advance in the technology development, particularly for batteries, drives, end of life, and thermal management. And then we'll be moving into some of those other technology focus areas in 2025. Okay, so there's a lot going on there. I gave you the very quick version of what's going on in those 2 pillars, because I want to focus most of our time today on what's going on in the education and workforce development space here at the university. So like our counterparts in the center, that have been digging deep with industry to understand their technology needs. We also, in parallel, have been working with our industry partners to understand their workforce development and education needs. And I kind of put those into these 5 high-level buckets around the areas of need that we heard most from our employer partners. I'm sure you all probably relate to the majority of these, or you've heard of these needs, obviously, in this ecosystem. First one, our employer partners want to make sure we're starting early with our children to make sure we're getting them excited and engaged and thinking about EV career pathways for the future. They also want to make sure that the undergraduate, graduate, and professional education programs we as academic institutions are designing and launching are aligned with their needs for skill and talent development. Workforce transformation. So they don't want to lose the great assets they have in the people that they have today. So making sure that there are effective solutions for workforce transformation, upskilling and reskilling is another need we heard. Fostering collaboration. This is a big one. So the best way I describe this need that we heard from our partners was, there are, as you can hear today, there are many, many, many resources being developed to support education and workforce efforts in the electric vehicle space. But when you ask our employer partners how they go about navigating those resources, it's really difficult for them. There's a lot to consume. They have little capacity to do that, and not necessarily all the tools at their fingertips to do so. So fostering partnerships to develop tools and solutions was another need to help them navigate these resources. And then last but not least, we are surrounded every day at the university here, thankfully, by our new generation of talent that's going to be entering your companies here in the future. And what we heard from our employer partners was, there's some gaps. There's some gaps in the values of our future talent with the values of companies, and particularly manufacturers here, across the state and across the Midwest. And so they have a strong need to help think through for their business. What can they do better within their organization to fill some of those gaps to not only attract, but also retain future talent? So with those 5 high-level priorities in mind, we are making sure that within the EV Center, everything that we are moving forward, and some of the examples I'll give you here today, are in alignment with the state of Michigan's workforce development strategy that was launched earlier this year, all with the vision of making sure that we are developing equitable and accessible employer-driven solutions. Foundational to equitable and accessible employer-driven solutions is making sure that we are supporting diverse audiences and the tools and resources we're creating or we're helping our partners to create. And so it's really important to us that as we think about what the needs are and we're working to address them, is that we have those underserved and underrepresented populations of our potential audiences at the table in the design process. So we are making sure that as we develop these solutions and we head down towards developing all these programs and pathways, that they're at the table, that we can hear them from the beginning and not the end. It's not an afterthought. And so we're excited to be engaging with many of our partners to help make sure we do that in an effective way. Okay, so I'm going to give you some very practical examples just for awareness. Like I said, this is probably a small sliver of all the great things going on, but I'm going to kind of fly through these pretty quickly. So when we talk about the K-12 space, one of the great partnerships that we have formed here over the last year is with the Center for Digital Curricula here at the university. They are in the process right now as we speak of developing and actually piloting a series of online modules that will actually be aligned with K-8 standards, state standards, and launched into the classroom to get students thinking about different aspects of EVs, from foundational knowledge in the kindergarten space and advancing up through 8th grade. So our team is super excited here within the Electric Vehicle Center. We're lending them subject matter expertise to make sure that content is relevant and accurate. We're connecting them to our employer partners to make sure that we're bringing that real world practical application experience to help the students understand how what they're learning can then be applied in future career opportunities. And so this is being piloted right now and vetted, and we're thrilled that many of the teachers that they're called roadmaps, these roadmaps have been shared with. The teachers are thrilled. They're really effective solutions that they're working on. Additionally, the Grizzly Scholars Program, this is some activities that we've supported here over the last 6 months or the summer. This is particularly for 7th grade students in the Ypsilanti Community Schools in partnership with our Office for Culture, Community, and Equity. So great hands-on experience from a virtual perspective that the students received. Utilizing VR technology to actually get in and do a teardown process for a Model 3 Tesla. And so, many different hands-on experiences working right alongside our faculty who are great at making sure that they're explaining things in a way where a 7th grader can understand it, but giving them some visual opportunities to learn more about the electric vehicles themselves. Think a Bit Lab is just another opportunity also that we've done here recently. Again, this is for students ages 14 to 18, particularly in Detroit schools, where we got students kind of thinking about opportunities, creating different battery test scenarios with hands-on experience in order to get them thinking about career pathways in the EV space. Our goal with both of these programs is to figure out, now that we've kind of run it and pilot it, how do we expand it beyond these particular pilot scenarios? And so we will be launching these on a larger scale here soon. Okay, switching gears over to our undergraduate, graduate, and professional education programs. Some information to share with you. When you think about our undergraduates, at a university setting, often you think of engineers or technicians maybe, but we also want to think about career pathway opportunities for research, right? Not every student's going to be an engineer at the end of the day, and there's a tremendous opportunity in the EV space to get students thinking about how they can be future EV researchers. And so this program in particular just ran over the summer. There was 42 students engaged with it from across the US, and was really effective in getting these students practical experience and working right alongside our researchers to think about that career pathway opportunity for them also. We're developing some new course content in our undergraduate programs, particularly focused on battery management systems, battery manufacturing processes, again, driven by our employer needs that we heard, to make sure that even at that undergraduate level, that these students are learning the skills and the basics that they need to advance further in their engineering careers. And then taking that to the next level, we are in the process right now of developing a master's in battery engineering program. So this is a 27-hour set of curriculum that should be able to be completed within 1 year. And we'll be launching that here very soon in partnership with our environment and sustainability units here at the university, and also our entrepreneurship Center for Entrepreneurship group, just to bring that diverse perspective to this content as we are launching it. Many of you have probably already heard, hopefully, about the Michigan Scholars Program, but I didn't want to go by without mentioning it. Our partners at M-City have run an effective program funded by the Michigan Economic Development Corporation and the Talent Action Team there to support our EV scholars here at the university, undergraduate and graduate level, in connecting to our employer partners. So this creates incentive and advancement for our students that hopefully, upon graduation, will enter into working for many of you all and many in the EV career pathway space. M-City has a whole slew of other things going on, particularly in this space too, to get our students and beyond engaged in a lot of kind of environmental test scenarios, a lot of those on-site work opportunities for them. They're working right alongside some of the M-City member partners that are developing technologies, utilizing some of their next generation space there on campus. And so, creating additional kind of real world practical application experience for these students to learn right alongside industry. Okay. So workforce transformation, I'm going to take a little bit of a shift here in thinking more broadly across the university and from my lens of the Economic Growth Institute. But when we think about workforce transformation, there's about 1,001 things we could do in this space to help our companies upskill and reskill their current workforce. And one of the programs I wanted to mention is called the Supply Chain Transformation Center. So this may be of interest to you all on the call today that are manufacturers in the EV space, but also even more so for those of you that have deep supply chains, particularly with small to medium-sized manufacturers and those supply chains. This program is part of the Global Epicenter of Mobility. If you're not familiar with that, it's a $52 million grant that the Greater Detroit region received around from the Economic Development Administration to advance mobility in this region. So this program actually helps companies, small to medium-sized manufacturers, with very direct hands-on support, capacity building support, technical assistance, funding resources to really help these companies think about what does their future business model look like? How are they going to advance their company into EV or beyond into other mobility opportunities? And then once they have that foundation established, critical to that is how are they going to sustain the workforce necessary to operate that business? So we find that this program is a great example of how the university, how we leverage our resources here to support our ecosystem and supply chains throughout the state. The universities do much more than your traditional educational programs, as you've heard today on this session. And this is a great example of how we're leveraging those resources to foster economic development across the state. And with that program, also foundational to, we can have strong supply chains and companies, we can have a strong workforce at the end of the day. But what foundational to both of them is if we don't have strong communities throughout the state to hold up those companies, to be a place where people want to work, then, we're going to be in trouble, right? So additional resource I just wanted to share with you all. It's called the Michigan Vehicle Technology Transition Impact Project. That's a mouthful here at the university. So in partnership with our partners at Michigan Clean Cities, State of Michigan's Department of Treasury, and the Office of Future Mobility and Electrification, we are actually leveraging those resources and our ecosystem partners to support 11 communities throughout the state of Michigan. We know that when our supply chains and our workforce transitions, our communities are also going to see a significant impact around electrification. And what does that mean for them? So we're helping these 11 communities to really dig deep, understand where their needs and concerns are, and then lay out very detailed plans as to how they are going to remain resilient, how they're going to plan ahead to mitigate some of those maybe negative impacts they may see in their community, and how they're going to lift up those positive impacts that the EV space is going to bring to them. So supporting these 11 communities funded by the Department of Energy will be helping them to plan ahead, and coming out of that planning will be a whole series of workforce training and technical assistance we'll be launching to help support them. Okay. So fostering collaboration, I mentioned this one in particular, we heard a lot about. There is a tremendous opportunity for us to lift up our resources here at the university. And we're doing so through a variety of ways, whether it's supporting different working groups that are going on with our industry partners, such as SAE or others, sitting on different, elevating different consortiums, connecting with our federal, state, and local partners, developing those partnerships, and really digging deep with industry. But the one exciting thing I wanted to mention to you all that we are in the process of developing right now, and would love to have participation from those on the call today. When we asked employer partners, you know, how do you navigate today the education, training resources when you have a need, whether that's funding, it's curriculum, content, how do you know where to go? I always say we kind of either got blank stares of they don't know where to go, or we got a whole list of websites that they have to go to weed through and figure everything out. So our goal with that need in mind is to develop an employer-driven portal, we'll call it, where my hope is if you as an employer partner in the EV space have a particular need, let's say thermal safety training or safety training, that in 2 to 3 clicks, hopefully through this portal, you should be able to figure out what resources are available to you, whether that's training resources, grants, programs, you name it, based on your particular need. You'll be able to identify those resources quickly and then know very easily how to take action to pursue those opportunities. So we're going to need all partners involved in the development of this process. We are just starting the development process for this tool, but with the intentional focus on making sure we are meeting that particular need we heard from our employer partners. So a lot more to come there. Hopefully I'll jump back on a MAGMA meeting here in the future and update you on that project. This slide here just kind of shows what I just covered. There's a lot going on here right now, a lot more coming up in the near future in terms of activities that are launching across the university to support our EV talent development. Foundational to that, I can't go without saying, the Electric Vehicle Center is a member-based organization driven by industry and our ecosystem partners. So we really want to make sure now that we are officially have the doors open and are enrolling members that we have you all engaged to inform our future activities. Again, everything we're doing throughout those 4 pillars is going to be driven by industry needs. If you're interested in following along with the EV Center, there's the QR code there. You are more than welcome to engage with us, follow along. You can become an affiliate member for free, or you can look into the more detailed membership options if you're interested in participating in some of those project workshops and other things that I mentioned. And I'm happy to, cover in more detail, answer any questions for any of you all in the future here on any of those particular topics and or circle back on anything in more detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashlee. My goodness, what a comprehensive approach. I mean, you're covering all the bases there. And it did an outstanding job. We don't have time for questions now because we've run people over a little bit, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. That doesn't mean we still won't try and get the questions that are in the chat after we close it all down. So with that, I'm going to leave it up to Michelle to close our event, if she's out there.
I was just trying to find my unmute button. Okay, this has been wonderful. Thank you, Dennis, and thank you kindly to all the speakers that we have today. Any final questions? Alicia, would you like to run us through the chat for specific Q&A to put out to the panel? And in this panel discussion, any question can be addressed by any of the panel speakers and multiple speakers per question. Trying to look here right in the chat if there were really pointed questions.
Yeah, there's quite a few. Let's see, we also have a hand raised from John. Let's start with John. We just have to open up his microphone. Give us a second. We're going to allow your mic, John. You should be able to unmute. John, are you there?
I do not believe that the settings allow for them to unmute, so he'll have to just drop it in the chat.
Okay. All right, so if everyone can throw specific questions into the chat, these questions, again, can be answered by any of the speakers, multiple speakers per question.
Michelle, it's come up a couple times. People are looking to see if they can get the slides that we'll email those to all the participants.
Yes.
Okay.
That is correct.
Yep.
Yep, we'll email the slides and the recording afterwards. We do have some questions in the Q&A from John. It sounds like this speaker who interfaces with IPSI, which is Ashlee, has activities with programs in Germany. Do they use international webinars? And then also, will there be a time for outside questions today? So yes, this is your time. And will there be a list of contacts provided? Yes, we will send that with the presentations and the recordings afterwards. So Ashlee, I don't know if you can answer the international webinars one.
Yeah, that's not something I would say I know of that we've done lately, at least. Many of those initiatives I mentioned are just recent, like within the last 6 months we've launched them, but definitely something that as we expand our reach, we would definitely love to consider.
Perfect. I do see one in the beginning. I think this was more for Elizabeth, but are there minimum reading or math level candidates should have?
That's a good question. One that, I'd have to go back and look. I want to say it's 10th grade reading level. And then math skills, I would definitely have to go back and research that. So a high school degree is going to be, I would imagine, probably minimal. And certainly the technical aptitude is going to be a requirement. How you measure that technical aptitude is defined by what you see in the body of knowledge. And, from a competency perspective, problem solving skills, critical thinking skills, communication skills are going to be necessary.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We do have one, and this one's for Jeremy. Will any of these opportunities be more accessible in Southeast Michigan now that Michigan Tech will be a service provider at the American Center for Mobility?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is yes. That partnership with ACM absolutely does open up some opportunities. Number one, we're just going to be in Southeast Michigan a lot more frequently, and number two, it provides us a space and a venue, bricks and mortar facilities, track facilities, et cetera. So that answer is absolutely yes.
Outstanding. Another question, are people being trained getting jobs, or are these unfilled job openings? I know someone had that question earlier today too, and that's maybe almost a three-parter for all of you, but feel free to start.
So I in the chat, I answered what I know. I don't have an exact number of job openings. I do know anecdotally from the employers that we're working with that they're actively hiring for these roles and training for these roles. So it's a good takeaway for me to, to go back and do some analysis of the openings that are there. So I'll be able to do that and get back to the team.
Yeah, and I can answer just more broadly in terms of openings. I'll find it here as soon as I'm done talking, but there was a really good research study published here recently from the Upjohn Institute around battery career openings and opportunity projections. So that is a tremendous resource if you're looking at projections, particularly in the battery manufacturing space. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but they do a really good and thorough job in running some projections in that space, particularly. I know many of them those positions are getting filled, as many of our students obviously are being hired on a daily basis, and so I can answer that piece of it, broadly. But I'm happy to drop that study in the chat here.
Yeah, I can add on that because SAE is, actively working in the battery manufacturing space as well. I was just online with, one of our subject matter experts, and he said, the war for that talent is really strong. A lot of these folks know each other, and they're, kind of continually picking off, some of their colleagues' workforce. There's a real shortage in battery manufacturing workforce. So there's, I think, a lot of demand in that space.
Perfect. Thank you. And thanks for dropping that link in the chat, Ashlee. We kind of covered this one. This one's for Jeremy, but it kind of got repeated. What are the costs involved? Are the course fees comparable to the regular course fees offered in the traditional degree program and career advancement opportunities that U of M might have observed based on those who took those trainings? Course credit transfer. So maybe that one's also for Ashlee too.
Yeah, I think maybe it's for Ashlee. It sounded like the person asking the question mentioned U of M in the question.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the question. Can you repeat the last part of it there again?
I know it's kind of higher up. It's at 1026. Again, what is the cost involved? Are the course fees comparable to the regular course fees offered in the traditional degree program and the career advancement opportunities that U of M might have observed based on those who took these trainings? And then it says course credit transfer ?
Great question. Yes. So I don't have the figures in terms of actual course costs right in front of me. And a lot of that is still, if you think about like our master's in battery engineering program that's being developed right now as we speak and will be launching soon, that cost is to be known yet, but obviously needs to be comparable to other resources and opportunities for upskilling. As that program is really designed for your current engineer that's working, complete this in 1 year's time. From that perspective, a lot of our other work right now in terms of supporting, we're doing a lot of kind of train the trainer approaches to things, whether it's supporting our community college partners, our high school teachers. A lot of that right now is at our costs. We want to make sure we're sharing our resources that we have here within the EV Center with the funding from the state of Michigan to support our partners as broadly as we can. So it really depends on, which course, which content we're talking about here. But we want to make sure that cost is not an accessibility factor as much as we possibly can.
Outstanding. Thanks, Ashlee. Are there any other final thoughts or comments from the presenter, or maybe even Michelle or the moderator? The last thing I just have here is interesting and useful talks. This is a comment from one of the participants. Thanks. Go SAE, go MTU, and go Blue. So good job, you guys. Any other thoughts that you would like to include?
I think
this is a wonderful forum to really bring together all of the rich offerings that, just not just the three of us, right? Because there's many more opportunities in workforce development across the state, and just really a pleasure to be able to participate today. Thanks so much. to MAGMA for inviting us and inviting me, and it's really been a joy.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all of your hard work. This has been very, very informative. Appreciate the strong attendance this morning on a early morning Friday, and I wish everyone a safe and happy Indian summer September weekend. Thank you all for joining. Bye-bye
Thanks
now.
to Dennis as well. Thank you,
Oh,
Dennis.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.